What's up guys, Luke Griffith here. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa, and now living in Austin, Texas, training with New Wave Jiu-Jitsu.
Let's talk about your earlier years growing up in South Africa. You mentioned you were around 5 years old when you started training Jiu-Jitsu, fell in love with it pretty quickly, and it's kind of all you've ever known, really?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, pretty much something I've been doing my whole life. My dad grew up in kind of like an area where he was getting to like a lot of fights, throughout his growing up, and so throughout his life, he kind of did a whole bunch of different martial arts, trying to like figure out what was going to be the best to kind of help him have the best self-defense. Unfortunately, he didn't find it while he was still getting into those fights, but around the time he was maybe, I wouldn't say 25, 26, he started jiu-jitsu, and at that time, that was maybe just before I was born. So by the time I got to 5 years old, he just got his purple belt, and then he started teaching my sister and I, at our little home gym. And from there, I mean, in the beginning, it was kind of a little bit rough, I suppose when you're not good at something, like, you don't really enjoy it as much, So in the beginning, there was definitely some like fighting and tears of my sister and I not wanting to do it. But then obviously throughout the years, we began to enjoy it a lot more, and obviously, I've taken it to the highest level now. So it's been an awesome journey for sure.
Yeah, I share a very similar experience with when I first started training Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it in a way.
Yeah.
My parents made me sort of do it.
Yes.
And it's an awkward thing to get into.
For sure.
And it's a big struggle. Like, it doesn't come easy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like my parents having fights about it because I would like complain to my mom that I didn't want to go and train, and my dad was like, you know what, like my mom's name is Michelle. You're like, Michelle, like this is not up to you. Like, this is up to me. The kids need to know how to defend themselves. Like, they can cry about it all they want, but they're going to train. And I'm so grateful my dad actually did that because, obviously, even if I wasn't competing at the highest level, it's just a very useful skill to have in life. So yeah, super grateful for that.
So, started training when you were 5. At what point did you start getting competitive?
Yeah.
But also sort of give it that shot of like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. So I want to say, like, I actually took me a pretty good while to start competing. I want to say maybe around the age of 15 or 16 is when I really started competing like locally in South Africa. And at that time, like, it was something that I really enjoyed doing. I hadn't made like a conscious decision that was what I wanted to do for a living yet. But very quickly it became like I was one of the best grapplers in South Africa at the time. So I mean, 15, 16 competing against adults in South Africa. So I mean, people started to like kind of know who I was locally there already. And then after maybe about 2 years, when I graduated high school, I went on like a kind of a vacation to kind of after school just to see what like the rest of the world was like a little bit traveling and kind of to see what direction I wanted to take. And on that vacation is when I realized, like, actually I didn't want to go to college, I didn't want to do anything else, like I wanted to pursue jiu-jitsu. So when I got back home, I told my parents, and my dad was happy with that, and we started training real hard. And it was maybe a little bit less than a year after that I did my first European trials, which would have been in 2019.
And these are the ADCC
trials. Yeah. So the first 2 trials I went to, and I remember I won my first match, and I remember getting my first feature on Flow Grappling. Nobody knew who I was. They didn't tag me in the video.
Yeah, for letting us use your building.
They didn't tag me. Like, nobody knew who I was, but like I got a pretty cool finish, and they posted it. And I remember being like so excited. Everyone back home was like, "Oh man, Luke made it onto Flow." And then I ended up losing the second round, and I was like, "Oh man," like, it was disappointing. But like at that point, I didn't really know what to expect. It was my first time competing overseas, and so I was relatively happy with kind of just the experience in general and how it went. But that's when I knew I was like, okay, the next one, like, I want to win. And so we trained really, really hard. Obviously 2019 ADCC came, and I watched everyone compete, and I was like, man, like, I want to be at the next ADCC. And so we went to the next ADCC European trials, my dad and myself, and like I really thought that I put in like as much work as possible. Like, I did everything I possibly could to be as well prepared for that trials as possible. And I got there and I won my first 2 matches, and then again lost in the semifinals. And it was just like, it was really disappointing for me. Like, both my dad and I, like, we went back to the hotel room and we were just kind of discussing, what the next steps were going to be. Like I thought honestly that was going to be it. I was like, man, I did everything I possibly could and I didn't win. Like I don't really know what else to do from here. And so we hopped on the phone with my mom so that we could all like kind of have a discussion together. And I had a US visa at the time because I was planning to visit New York prior to COVID, and that never ended up working out, but I'd already got the visa. And my mom and dad were like, why don't you try and go from here to the US? John and New Wave had just moved to Texas from Puerto Rico, train with them for a little bit, see what the level is there, maybe try and compete and see what it's like, and then from there you can decide, okay, do you want to quit or do you want to carry on? And so I made the decision to come through, and yeah, I mean, I think I trained one time at RGA and then I got a staph infection and I had to sit on the side of the mats for like a week, but I didn't want to miss a class, so I went in every single day, took notes at all John's classes and was just like super consistent. And then once my staph infection went away, I trained again for a day, and that's when John was like, hey Luke, like I noticed you came in every day, like I know you traveled a long way. I'd obviously introduced myself to him and told him where I was from and whatnot. And then he invited me to come through and train at Roca. And I was ecstatic, man. I was like, there's got to be like a joke, It was a dream come true for me to be able to like go and train with Gordon and John. So I went in there, and then it was supposed to be a relatively short trip, and then John asked me initially, could I extend the trip? And so we extended it slightly, and then after that, he was like, look, what are the chances you'd be able to like stay here full time? And so I said to him that like, I'll do whatever it takes, So I called my parents and I was like, hey, I don't know what we have to do, but I'm not coming home. Like I have to stay here. And so that's what we did. I mean, on the first year and a bit, it was just on a tourist visa, so I'd have to be here for 6 months, and then I'd have to leave the country for a certain amount of time before I could come back. And I was doing that, and then so I left one time, came back, and that's when I was preparing for the third ADCC trials that I would have competed in. And now, obviously, training with John, I was super confident. Just before the ADCC trials, I had my first match on Who's Number One. So Gordon, obviously, I'd been with the team for a relatively short time, and Gordon called the guys at Flow, and he was like, hey, like I have this kid from South Africa, like he's really good, like let's put him on the show. And so they gave me a match with Joe Durkheising at the time, who was a black belt world's silver medalist, and he just submitted Vinicius Tractor like after he had a pretty good run at ACC, only losing to Gordon in the finals, and so like I guess everyone pretty much thought I was going to lose. Like it seemed like a very big mismatch since nobody knew who I was at the time, and so I came out and I ended up finishing Joe in like 90 seconds or something like that, and that all of a sudden like people started to recognize who I was. And then from there, I think after like 2 weeks after that, I flew out to ADCC trials in Poland, and I went out there and like pretty much had one like I would say even still to this day, like really one of the best performances I put on. And I went and got like, I think it was like 3 out of my 4 matches with submissions, and I managed to win the trials. And like, man, I still remember that like the day clearly, like when I won. Like feeling this like sense of obviously excitement but relief, like this was a goal that I'd wanted to achieve for years at this point, and I was finally able to like actually punch that ticket, and yeah, it was just an incredible feeling for me to be able to do that, and like accomplish the first step towards actually like the ultimate goal of winning ADCC, so that was huge for me. And obviously, yeah, I mean, training with John, like in South Africa, I did everything I possibly could, but just the level of training that John and Gordon were able to provide made that final step possible,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to go back just a couple steps, because when we were talking yesterday, you mentioned that you had come here with just a backpack, with basically nothing. You came straight from Europe, you extended your trip multiple times. I want to talk about you taking the risk and like betting on yourself, because that's huge. Like not a lot of people would do that, coming halfway across the world to a place like Austin. It's not even like you went to New York or like maybe LA. Like Austin is on the up and up, and the jiu-jitsu scene is massive here, and obviously you have, but it's not like a city that you hear about a lot growing up, so it's like you kind of stepped in the complete unknown and really bet on yourself.
For sure. I mean, there was some times where like I was like thought to myself, like, what am I doing? So obviously, like you mentioned, I was only meant to be away from home for like 5 days. I think the trip to the Euro trials, ADCC Euro trials, was like a 5-day long trip. So I packed a backpack with 5 days worth of clothes, and I ended up like going across the country for like, I think it was a year before I went back home. And after John invited me to ADCC, to Roka, and I got to know Gordon a little bit. I mean, obviously didn't know him very well, but he knew the situation. And like I showed up to training one day, and Gordon just bought me like bags full of clothes, man, like brand new stuff that maybe he hadn't worn yet or whatnot. And he was like, "Yeah, you can have these." When he could, he would give me rides to and from practice. So yeah, I mean, just from kind of like not really knowing me from a bar of soap to really just being like, you know what, I'm gonna help this kid. He doesn't really have anything, and it's been like that, throughout my time with New Wave. Everybody there, like I mean, Giancarlo, Nicholas, Gordon, all those guys have been like a very instrumental part in my success. So I'm very grateful for all the support that they've given me. But yeah, I mean, there were some times, like I remember the first winter here, I was like walking from where I was staying at the time, like in the ice and like the rain to training. I was telling you yesterday, one time when I got back, I can't remember where I was traveling from, I didn't have enough money to get an Uber, but I could buy a 2-hour Lime scooter pass. And so I scooted from the Austin airport like 2 hours back to where I was staying at the time. Along the freeway with my backpack on. It was dodgy, but I mean, we make it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff kind of just makes you appreciate, like the small steps towards success a little bit more. If you just have everything easy from the beginning, then I think you can take some stuff for granted. Whereas, now looking back at where I started to, obviously I'm not at the end goal yet, but where I am now is definitely, you can see the progression, so it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, just betting on yourself like that, just a kid from South Africa who fell in love with jiu-jitsu and didn't have the best training partners growing up, and just kind of keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then taking that big jump is, I think, something very inspiring. And
yeah, no, I mean, I must say, like, obviously it's like you say, betting on yourself, but I mean, you're very blessed just to be surrounded by like the individuals that I am, because yes, like jiu-jitsu in a way is an individual sport, but at the same time it's not, like without the teammates and like the people that you have around you, it's very hard to be successful. And I think everyone at New Wave kind of will tell you that we're very blessed to have all the people in that room, really want each other to succeed, which is, something that you maybe not like don't find everywhere else, so it's awesome.
Yeah. How does it feel being able to represent your nation on like the world's biggest grappling stage?
Man, it's pretty cool. I mean, like I was saying to you, like in South Africa, like rugby is like one of the main sports.
Right.
So pretty much I would say like 90% of boys growing up, like their dream is to play for the Springbok rugby team. Like that's just, the way it is. And even for me, like for a long time, that was like a dream of mine, I wanted to play rugby. And obviously that didn't end up happening. I had like stopped playing rugby when I was maybe 13 or 14 years old. But for me now still to get the opportunity to represent my country and, in a sport like jiu-jitsu, at the highest level is something that I never really thought I would be doing, So for me to wear the jersey and like, represent my country means a lot to me. And I think it's just, maybe hopefully it's inspiring to like other younger kids, of the new generation that are doing jiu-jitsu, that it is possible to come from South Africa and actually make it to the top of the sport,
Yeah.
So, if I can be, an inspiration to even just one other kid to do this, I mean, that, I'd be happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So besides from obviously training at New Wave and this being your home now, you have a school back home, right? That you run with your sister. Your dad's a black belt at this point.
Yes.
So it's really a family affair.
It's a family affair. Business. Yeah. So I mean, my the school, I think I want to say I opened it in like maybe late 2017, early 2018. And so like it really is a family affair. So it's myself, my dad, my sister, my dad's brother, and my cousin, all of us train. So my dad and his brother, both black belts, they started together. And so now like they all compete like within like the local circuit back home. And my sister and my dad have done a really great job of growing that school since I left, So I mean, I want to say I had like a handful of students at the time. Obviously it was very small, but I mean, my sister's running a killer kids program right now. I think they have tons of kids they're looking to expand. I think they need to get more space. My dad runs the adult no-gi program. So yeah, I mean, it's really awesome to see just how much the sport's grown there as well. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to going back there and, just kind of seeing it for myself and, seeing how everyone's doing. But yeah.
Has it always been no-gi for you then? Because obviously, I want to say like everybody starts in the gi,
Yeah.
especially with when you started
A long time ago.
19 years ago.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say actually. So the first gym that I ever started training at was they didn't do kids in the gi actually. So I only started training in the gi maybe when I was like 13 or 14 years old. But then once I did start training in the gi, that was primarily what I was training in. So up until I moved here, actually, I was training in the gi like 4 or 5 times a week, and then maybe doing like 2 or 3 sessions of no gi. And then when I got here, everything just flipped, and now if I see a gi, I'm like, man, please just like take it away, you know. But to be honestly, I do enjoy the gi a little bit. It's just annoying to have to like get back into the habit of making grips and like, you know, slowing things down again. But there are intricacies and you know, like elaborations that I do enjoy with the gi as well. But yeah, definitely primarily like I would say from 12 to like 18, mostly training in the gi. Yeah.
Kind of talk us through like your training regimen. You know, like a lot of people are obviously curious about how is it training at New Wave. You know, you have John Denner, you have Gordon, training under, you know, arguably one of the greatest coaches and arguably the greatest no-gi grappler alive
of all time. Yeah.
Of all time. How is it training with them? What's the mindset like having a team like that?
Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously like it's very difficult to explain until you experience it, right? Like it's something that, you know, I thought I understood before coming here, and then when I actually trained with John, like it was just like completely mind-blowing. But it's a very professional environment, you know. So and John does a very good job of emphasizing you know, mental work as much as physical work, because everybody knows how to train hard physically. You know, everyone can go into the gym and they can work out as hard as they can, you know, and train hard, which is great because it makes you physically tough and it makes you you get good endurance like that. But you don't always build superior technique that way. You know, your mind has to be working just as much as your body has to be working. And so John does a really good job of emphasizing, you know, that mental aspect of like actually learning and understanding the techniques rather than just, you know, repeating something for a certain amount of time and then, you know, sparring as hard as you can. You know, so I think one of the things that makes all of our guys so good is that we have this kind of deeper understanding of why we do the things we do. And when you have that understanding, it's a little bit easier to decide when to do them because you know what the situation requires for you to do, you know. And then obviously you have guys, like you said, like Gordon, Meregali, Giancarlo, all of these guys, multiple time world champions. And they have that competition experience, you know. So you train with these guys every single day. And when you go out and compete, it's not like you're going to face anybody else that's better than these guys. So you have that kind of confidence that, okay, I train with the best guys every day. When I go out and compete, you know, there shouldn't be anything that somebody gives to me that I haven't already had to like experience or like that haven't been against already, you know. So that gives you a lot of confidence. And then, yeah, I mean, like John always talks about the confidence as well, is also your confidence should equate to the level of preparation that you put in. So like you, in your mind, each person knows if they did everything they can to prepare, right? Like I can tell you that I prepared very well, but if I didn't, then obviously it's going to show. So you have to kind of have that balance of confidence, yes, but also you don't want to be delusional. Like you want to be like, maybe a little bit of delusion is good, but a little bit, like as soon as you go over that line of a little bit, then obviously you're doing yourself a disservice as well. So, you know, we're thinking about all these different kinds of things when we're in the training room.
Yeah, so you're almost talking about his comment after your ADCC run.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're the second best
Exactly,
in the world.
Yeah. I was, after that match, he went up to my parents and he was like, congratulations, your son's the second best in the world. I mean, honestly, I don't know if he said it, he meant to say it like how it sounded. He might have meant to say like, oh, like second best is good, you know, but you just never know with John. It could have been funny, but honestly, I'm grateful to have people like around that can actually be honest with me, you know. And like we spoke about a little bit yesterday, the last thing I would want as somebody who wants to be the best in the world is for me to put on a shit performance and then someone to tell me how you did a good job, like actually like better luck next time. Like if I do something wrong, I want someone who's supposedly a friend and a coach to me to come and tell me like, hey Luke, like, you messed up, this is what you have to do, like, don't do that again. And that's what people who care about your success will do. If someone really wants you to succeed, they'll tell you what you have to do. And so that's what John is, and that's what Gordon is. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have an incredible environment over there.
Yeah.
Just getting to watch it a little bit, hearing and seeing John, how he really does see it all.
Yeah.
He is like, has his eagle's eye, like,
On
on every
everything.
angle. And
Yeah.
I was sitting from one side, and I'm like, how did he even know that
Yeah.
they did it right? Incredible coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure it's I'm sure it's hard to, like you mentioned earlier, you don't really know until you get to experience it.
Yes.
Like, you don't really know what it's like to be training at that high of a level, or
Yeah.
having that sort of coaching on your side,
Yeah.
and what you're able to actually achieve. And that kind of speaks to you leaving Europe and almost being ready to throw in the towel,
Yeah.
and kind of calling quits and feeling like you have given it all you could.
Yeah.
And then you come here, and this is this whole new side to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, I'm so glad I didn't give up, because I mean, the things that jiu-jitsu has given me now, I mean, I can't even like begin to, to imagine like if myself being 16 or 17 saw where I am right now. I mean, I don't think you would believe it. To be able to travel the world doing something that you love as a job is, something that many people dream about doing. I can't imagine being stuck in, doing something that I hate every single day from 9 to 5, just so I can, make ends meet.
Yeah.
I mean, so blessed to be in the position that I am, and excited really for the future, because it's been good, but it's only going to get better from here. It's just the beginning. I'm still young. I have a lot of years ahead of me, hopefully. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So let's talk about the future, though. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, there's this ADCC run every 2 years.
Yes.
There's a lot of titles and a lot of achievements and a lot
Yeah.
of things that you still want to prove to yourself. But like, thinking further ahead, like thinking like 5 or 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
What is it really that you not only want to be like sort of remembered by, but like what is it? Where do you want to end up? Like,
Yeah.
where do you want to be?
So, I mean, obviously everybody has the goal of winning an ADCC title, right? So for me, obviously that's the first step. I got really close this past year, and that was something that I really thought I was going to achieve this year, and I wasn't able to do that. So the next 2 years will definitely be focused heavily on that. But there's a lot of people who've won ADCC, but nobody knows who they are, and I don't want to be one of those people. So for me, winning a title is not the end goal. What Gordon's been able to do, over the past couple of years, and really, define himself as like one of the best ever, is something that I aspire to. And, a lot of people think what Gordon's done is unattainable, and maybe it is. And this is where I think that a little bit of delusion needs to come in, where, obviously I love Gordon and he's a good role model to me, but my goal is to be better than him. And, he'll tell you that that's what he wants for me. Whether people think that it's possible for me to do or not, that to me doesn't make a difference. I believe I can do it. And, for me, I won't stop until that is, what I've done. Obviously there are certain things that are out of your control, but with everything that I am able to control, that's my goal, right? So I don't just want to win a tournament and, get a certain amount of money. Like, my goal is to be the best ever. And so the next, 5 to 10 years, that's all I'm going to be focused on.